Metagaming with Beef Stew. Beef Stew is a hyper-aggressive Warlock-Murloc-based deck built to combat a control-dominated metagame full of shallow sweepers, spells that hit all enemy minions for a low amount of damage, the main examples being Blizzard, Consecration, Holy Nova, Swipe, and Starfall. Beef Stew is also extremely consistent with fast threats and constant pressure, and because of this is a strong deck to combat a varied metagame when there is no current boogeyman or you're unsure of what you'll be facing. This will most commonly occur at the end of each monthly season when rankings are reset and everyone is working their way from the bottom again. The focus of Beef Stew is an aggro strategy that dominates the board state through attrition granted by high toughness, from cards like Blood Imp and Young Priestess for all of your minions, and Cold Light Seer and Murloc War Leader for your Murlocs. The resiliency granted by these cards allows Beef Stew to withstand spells and board states that classic aggro strategies would normally not. Beef Stew is strongest against decks with sweepers that cost 4 or more mana, as it can outgrow their damage potential, or against other aggressive strategies not centered around Murlocs, as you will eventually outgrow your opponent's minions, allowing board control and the victory. Beef Stew is weakest against a core mid-range strategy backed up by cheap removal or efficient sweepers costing less than 4 mana. As with any deck, your opening hand and mulligan choices are critical, and the most significant consideration should be the enemy hero power and how it affects your ability to build momentum. Rogue, Mage, and Druid hero powers are the most impactful, with the ability to remove the majority of your early threats at no card cost to themselves. This drastically changes what opening hands you should keep. Both Rogue and Druid hero powers are attack-based, so Voidwalker becomes premium, in addition to any of the 2 health minions like Flame Imp, Tidecaller, and buffers like Blood Imp and Young Priestess. It is acceptable to keep a Priestess with the expectation of her dying if the health she grants puts a more significant threat out of their power range. Against mages, the same applies minus the Voidwalker, as their power is not combat related and taunt has no effect on them. A Paladin's slow stream of 1/1s makes a very aggressive start profitable, with Voidwalker crucial to controlling his early plays and early minions. The other hero powers have no direct impact on the board, and opening hands should be considered with metagame decisions in mind. However, given that Hearthstone is still in beta and the card pool is still rather shallow, there are common threads among the classes that you should prepare for. Warriors are usually weapon heavy, with Fiery War Axe being one of their stronger early plays. If possible, Voidwalker plus Young Priestess or Blood Imp is great for early board control to build momentum on. Priests almost universally run Northshire Cleric and will aggressively mulligan into her, as she represents short-term board control and long-term card advantage. You'll want a deceptive opening hand that conceals the ability to deal 3 damage, as to bait the priest into dropping an early cleric. Abusive Sergeant is key here, and you'll probably want to first drop a minion that does not have 3 power. Once the cleric hits play, Abusive Sergeant allows for a trade they weren't expecting, and you can continue to develop your board and apply pressure. Warlocks are usually aggressive builds, and Blood Imp is the most important card for profitable trading. Because of this, Knife Juggler is also crucial to the matchup, as it can potentially take out opposing imps and hold control of the board aggressively. Hunter matches are very dependent on the type of deck you think they're playing. If aggro, Voidwalker, Blood Imp, and Knife Juggler are key, but if they're playing a control variant using traps, focus on building into the mid-game with Murlocs that combo into large health totals to push through their traps and weapon strikes. Shaman will universally be your worst matchup, as they pack premium removal for low mana investment in the forms of Stormforged Axe, Lightning Storm, and Forked Lightning. While you shouldn't ever expect to win consistently against a Shaman, it's certainly possible, and you can increase your odds by playing toward a mid-game strategy focused around Murlocs and Cold Light Seer. You'll want to commit just enough to the board to bait out a Lightning Storm, and if successful, drop as many threats the following turn as possible to capitalize on the Overlord limitation imposed by the spell. The best way to defeat Beef Stew is with a mid-range strategy focused around cheap removal and larger minions that trade profitably, like Harvest Golem, Defender of Argus, and Dark Iron Dwarf. Rogues and Shamans excel here, but the mid-range core strategy can be adopted by any class to great effect, as most of the effective mid-range minions are neutral and accessible by anyone. If you're piloting Beef Stew and come across a mid-range deck, the best strategy is to stutter your board growth with card draw in an attempt to out-resource them come late game. Your aim is to create ever larger Murlocs to give you the upper hand in trading, and admittedly this is very difficult to achieve against a normal mid-range deck, but it is possible. In a varied metagame, the best argument to play Beef Stew is to climb the ladder ranks quickly. Games are usually very short regardless of who wins, and because beef stew is both aggressive and consistent, you'll have the upper hand against a number of different strategies. Once you hit the higher ranks, it's quite possible you'll hit a wall of mid-range decks, and you'll probably need to change your deck when this occurs, but to get past the bottom ranks of random strategies as quickly and efficiently as possible, this is the deck to use. If you're looking for more guides, game, and deck theory, subscribe to Cloak Rising here on YouTube, or come check me out on my stream most evenings at twitch.tv/cloakrising.